I just need 1 second just to take a moment of silence to ask my God, my understanding, to just speak through me. Okay. Ooh, it's really an honor to be here. I speak often in different places, but this is different because this is a heart issue. And so I wanted to start out with the promises, and that's why I'm here today. My name is Blossom, and hi everyone, and I'm definitely one of you. I just want to read a portion of the promises that speaks to me periodically when I'm going through. It says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? No. I think not. They are being fulfilled amongst us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. I am truly a grateful Al-Anon person and also a recovered alcoholic and drug addict. Ooh, this is my story. We all have different stories, and our paths have crossed different lanes, but this is my story. What you see here is really the glory of God. A woman that was shattered, broken, really messed up in her thinking and her perception of life. And through these rooms, and through the program and through the literature, and through coming one day at a time and going and keep coming back, Blossom. I didn't know why you even bothered, but it kept keeping me coming back because I saw something in your eyes that I wanted. And yet you were all so different, and yet you were all one family. It made absolutely no sense to me. But through the program, it has helped me be who I am today. And I will share you my story. Literally, Al-Anon raised me. And so I shall begin at the beginning. All the characters that I'm about to share with you are a part of my life. It is not to discount them because they too suffered from a disease called alcoholism. It is not to shame them in any way. But the effects of their disease affected my personal life, which was a downright spiral. And so I need to share that first. Each one of them are now deceased. Before my mother died, who was my significant one, I asked her, could I tell my story? At that time, I was doing a television and a radio program, and she said yes, but it just was not the time. And I believe today now is the time. I was raised and born, my birthday is August 3rd, 1959. I was born in Birmingham, England. I am a British black girl. And my family came from Jamaica, which recently I found that I can't run for any office because I wasn't born an American citizen. But that's okay because I got relieved. I felt relieved once that came to pass. Let's talk about the responsibilities there. But anyways, in the birth room, my mother decided to keep me. And from that day on, it was living hell. My mother one day going to nursing school, because at that time England was under British rule. Jamaica was under British rule. They could get free schooling. And so she came to England to do school for nursing. And one day her and her girlfriend decided to take a bus to go into the village. And while she was there, she was raped. I am her rape child. Even though she kept me and she decided she really wanted to give me away, she decided to hold on to me. Because back in those days, a young woman really shouldn't be running around with an infant, a bastard child, if you will. And at the same time, she found a man that would take her and call me his own. So that kind of cleaned up the fence for both sides, because he was also running. I have 3 other siblings from a different father. My life was a secret, and I've learned over the years that secrets make you sick. My family continued to keep me as that secret. In my family in Jamaica, where I was raised for the portion of my years, basically about a year and a half, 2 years, my grandfather, who's also now deceased, who was one of my, he was one of my hellmakers. He was very wealthy, and he owned the village that we lived in. He built the schools, the bank, the grocery stores. And everyone in the village succumbed to my grandfather, even the school that I went to. I just want to share with you a little brief of my history so you can understand why I'm happy the way I am and why I love God the way I do. Raising up in that kind of a culture, child abuse was not a very big issue. Children were seen and not heard. And abuse was quite prevalent. Children were almost like beasts of burden. We were abused quite often. My grandfather, when he would look at me, saw my mother because of the disgrace and the shame that was brought to him and his village because she was pregnant. And again, even though it was a secret, he knew about it. And so my life was mostly beatings. And I will share with you a few of those, just to show you how horrific that disease can be. I believe alcoholism is a death angel that comes to destroy, kill, and destroy you. And he came to take me hostage. My grandfather, when he also came from a family of abuse, and his mother was his abuser, I couldn't go anywhere without being beaten by anyone. My family, because they hired so many people in the village, felt that to get favor from my grandfather, if they beat me and told him, they would get favor and get money to help in their affairs. My grandfather was quite violent. When I was beaten, it was until there was blood. Many times I didn't know if I was going to come out alive. I have a problem with chicken because I had been beaten so bad one time that my blood was mixed with the chicken blood that they had just chopped its head off to tell me not to speak about what I was experiencing. My sexual perpetrator was my uncle, who's also now deceased, and he was an alcoholic. And I had to do certain things, if not, I was going to die. Many times things were taken to my neck. And one of my worst experiences as a child, and I should have just given you an age frame, I was between 7 and 9 years old. So when I think of a small child at 7, I was already an adult at 7. I remember one day he took me by my hand and took me into the woods. And in there was this huge hole that was high as a mountain to a little child. And down below were all the carcasses that the people from the village would bring and throw in the hole, so the vultures would have something to eat. And I remember he took me there so I would not share what was happening. And he held me by my hand and held me over that hole. And all I could see was the dead carcasses down below. And I knew if I told anyone, I would never come out of there. And so I was quiet. And the beatings and the abuse continued. Not only from him and from my grandfather, but we also had hired hands. And so at their leisure, at their pleasure, they would assault me or abuse me. I remember years ago, one day as I was a real estate manager, there was a little girl that came out of this building where there was a lot of drugs activity going on. And she ran out the house and just threw herself on the cement floor and just dropped her body there. And I says, oh my God, that was me. I had no choice. My body was not mine. It was for anyone to use it as they chose. As time went on, my perception of love was really unusual. And the reason I ended up in Jamaica was my mom wanted to come to the United States. And so she sent me into an environment that she was also abused. And so those 2 years, it was living hell. What I believed at that time, because there was no sexual education, that to be abused was love. To be raped was love. It was a sign of affection that at least you touched me. At least you held me. Even in your anger, that means you must want me really bad, so it must be love. I had a distorted view of love. So I came through life with physical abuse, mental abuse, spiritual abuse, identity abuse, financial abuse, you name it. I think I've touched them all. My mother had abandoned us for that 2 years, and when she came, I didn't even know who she was. Anyways, as time went on, as much as I love my mom today, I understood the disease and why she allowed and sometimes just could not help herself or do what she deemed necessary because she did the best that she could because she was not treated also. It appeared that throughout my life, my mom tended to give me away to whomever thought I was beautiful. And she let them have me for the weekend. So my abuses was on so many different levels. I was just a walking rag. Totally shattered of spirit. Didn't know really what love was, but what was given to me. And I would just always cry. When we eventually came to America, my mom sent a man to come pick us up, which was a pedophile. Again, it just continued. And I said, Mom, please. Eventually, her husband that she married also came, and I was also afraid of him. And just about 5 years ago, I realized he was also my predator from 8 months on to about 4 years old. And I was able to talk to these things to my mom, to say to her, Mom, didn't you know that he abused me? It wasn't quite like that. Talk about denial in our family. Denial was huge. It just never happened. It just wasn't happening. And you're talking too much, you're crying too much, and whatever stays here, whatever happens here, stays here. Because we are a wealthy family, and we don't let people know our business. And we were sicker than most. Going into my teenage years, my mom wanted to save me from myself. She thought I was acting out. And the reality was I was really a happy child. I like to sing. That's why David, wherever you are, whenever he sings to me, just touches my heart. Because singing was something I loved so much. But I would be beaten if I sang. I couldn't eat my food. It would be taken from me. I couldn't play. What was a playground? I didn't even know what it was to be on a swing while I watched from the inside out. A lot of things as a child I lost, but Al-Anon taught me how to play again. And so in my teenage years, I began to go to drugs and alcohol to hide the pain because the pain was horrific. Because I continued in promiscuity because that's all I knew. That's all I knew. My friends were criminals. And they always said, Blossom, we just love being around you. You just bring light to us. But they were my best friends. And they watched over me because they saw that I was naive to the things of the world. Yet they had no clue how bruised and broken I was on the inside. Then my mom sent me to boarding school. Of course, we have to keep up an image because we're wealthy. And we can't let people see our dirt or our mess. And you be quiet about what is going on. So drugs and alcohol did take a part from me, and that's what brought me eventually to Al-Anon. I was so broken. Drugs and alcohol couldn't cover the pain anymore. And then I realized that this disease is so subtle, and yet it is so dangerous. As I watched others, and I said, well, their story can't even sound like mine. But yet the feelings were the same. The emotions were the same. The fears were the same. The obsession was the same. And I identified. I couldn't identify with Alcoholics Anonymous, even though I could drink and do drugs. But when I did stop, it was hell on earth for me, because without it, I had to feel everything. Remember the smells of everything. They told me to get a sponsor when I was in rehab. They told me to get a sponsor when I went to Al-Anon, and I did. And yet I still got abused in the program. It was enough to throw me out the door, but I stayed in anyways, because I was willing to do whatever I needed for this light that I saw in your eyes. Anyways, going back, after boarding school, I went to college and I got pregnant. And I have one daughter today, 3 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild, and that is the gift that God gave me. So I went to boarding school. One of the things that I had an issue with was fitting in any crowd. In England, there was no thing called prejudice. I didn't even know what being prejudiced really was. We were in a predominantly multicultural country. And then when I came to the States, I was alike because I was black, which made no sense to me. And so because I was fluently British, the blacks didn't like me, which made no sense to me. So I didn't understand what this thing was with the color of your skin. It was not until about 5 years ago I understood prejudice. And I'm 50, okay, whatever. So I remembered wanting to be white. And I remember as I was younger, I used to take these big white towels and put them in my hair, and I would twist it and everything. Because I figured if I'm white, then I must be light, but it didn't matter. It was just who I was. I was just a very rambunctious, love life kind of a girl, but each time I would step out just a little bit, they would push me down. This is one of my experiences. These are my experiences and some of my past. And so because of my lifestyle that I began to live once I left high school and college, I continued in a promiscuous lifestyle. Slept with whomever, whatever, just so I could feel love. That's how I knew about love, until Al-Anon taught me differently. I have been in many programs. I've been in many treatment centers for the first couple years of my life, and they always said I would never make it. I was one of their worst cases, and I really was. And until when I stopped drinking and they said, Blossom, we want you to draw a picture. And it was the first time I draw anything with my left hand. And what came out amazed me. It was my child trying to call out and say, Blossom, this is what happened to you. Because as long as I came under the addiction of drugs, I didn't have to feel anything. And so my journey began. So my experience in my past was a horrible childhood. When I hear of others and what they have gone through, I'm thinking each one of us is hard to us. But God has given me the strength to endure and to just continue to go forward. This has been difficult to bring this to you today, to be honest with you. As much as I speak, this is really, again, a part of my heart and vulnerability to share my story. Today, my present condition, I have promises that you gave me. Every one of my friends are dead today, and either in high school that I went with, those that I did drugs and alcohol with are all dead. The only ones that are still alive are Al-Anon. Thank God. But I was the one that they said wouldn't make it. And here I stand today, so God's glory can be seen. The present condition that I'm in today is that I'm positioned for miracles because of Al-Anon. And it's because of these steps, which I'm going to touch on briefly, that helped me in my course. I'm positioned for miracles. The God of my understanding lifted up my head from shame and let me know it wasn't my fault. I was only a child, but in a child's mind, they perceive everything. They believe they're the cause of everything. Through Al-Anon, I began to believe and trust again. I trusted no one because men abused me, women abused me, other kids abused me, even the animals would come and chase me down. So I didn't trust anything nor anyone. For those that heard me earlier this day, I talked about the surrendered part and trusting in my God, and I will share with that in a second. But I learned also for forgiveness. I was able to go back and forgive all the perpetrators that assaulted me, and I don't carry their burdens anymore. I stopped running from my shadow. That was huge. So in regards to the steps, to me, those are the core that helped me who I am today. I find that, when I go to meetings, oftentimes I used to just go in there and just dump and just not want to do any work. This happened to me, that happened, they did that, they did this, and I didn't want to look at me. But when I began to work the steps, that's when my life really changed. The first one says, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. My life was. I had no clue how to live. I did not know who I was. I was my mother's daughter. I was Mr. Preddy's granddaughter. I was someone else's, whatever title they gave me, but no one called me Blossom. That was interesting. But my life was really out of control. And I did not know how to live a life that seemed normal, or at least looked normal. And then I came to believe that a power greater than myself would restore me to sanity. I was insane. I didn't want to live in an insanity lifestyle like I saw those around me live. It was crazy. I knew it was crazy, but as a child, what can you say? What can you do? You had to be silent or you were abused. And so I came to believe a power greater than myself. I had encounters with a God of my understanding. He's not a tree. He's not, furniture. He's not a light, but he is light. No one could tell me about a higher power until I encountered him myself. And it was easy to go into all other cultures and, always searching for a God that I could understand, but it always came back to the ultimate God that created the universe. And no one could tell me that. It came through revelation from my searching for a God of my understanding. So I came to believe, because he reminded me, Blossom, when all these things were happening to you, I was there. Huh? How is that possible? He says, because I'm a God of love. And he says, why? I was angry just like you were angry. I couldn't believe God was angry that even happened to me because I blamed him. But he was there in all of it and protected me. If not, I would be dead today because death always followed me till I came into the rooms. And so I trust my God of my understanding that created everything, that sparkles in my eyes. He's everything that I need. And he's what gives me sanity of mind. And when I look in your faces, I see my God. When you speak to me, when David sings to me, when I'm with Christopher, and many of you that have come to learn and love, you are another part of the face of God that I see that loves me. I made a decision to turn my will over to this God that kept me. I think of Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a grave for all the king's horses, and all the king's men brought Humpty Dumpty together again. I always felt like Humpty Dumpty on that wall, broken like a shell. No one could put it back together. But my wholeness came through these rooms, one day at a time. So I made a decision to turn my will over to him. Then I had to make a searching and fearless inventory. That was really hard. I ran from that one because who wants to look at oneself? It's easy to blame everyone that did things to me, but what was my part? That made absolutely no sense to me. All I could see was the negativity of what I was and what they said I was, and my identity was wrapped up in their perception of me. But when it was time to write it down, I really couldn't do it until I asked God to help me, and I was actually able to take a look at who I was. Through the program, it just really helped me to disengage my activities because I was my worst enemy. It helped me to come against the tactics that I used, that I thought I was quite subtle with. Any one of my maneuvers or forms of operation, because the enemy knows how to get around things. But Al-Anon messed me up. I was my own war zone. But Al-Anon messed up all my engagements against myself. I had to make a first searching and moral inventory of my tactics and my part that I played. Someone said, what part could you have played in that? Give me 1 minute, I'll share with you. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact natures of our wrong. I've had several sponsors, and each one came right when I needed them, when they were able to handle what I was going through. Because some of the stuff that I shared was beyond something they've ever heard in their life. It was sometimes a little bit too much when I would get into the real details, and I just gave you just a couple things. Can you imagine how deeper that could have been? Some couldn't handle it. So God sent me people that could listen to me and love me and tell them every single thing I've done. Today I can tell you there is not a secret that I have not told. Like I said before, secrets keeps us sick. And so I was admitting my forms of admitted to God, and I admitted to someone else the exact natures of my wrong. And let me explain that part real quick. My uncle, who had abused me for 2 years, to me, I really focused on him a lot because he was really the last one outside of my school principal that was the last one that also beat me. In America, when I was here, we had an Indian teacher, and he believed in corporal punishment. And I remember it was the first time I ever fought back. And he took the belt out to me in his office. And I remember grabbing that belt and beating him with the belt. And it says, you will never hit me again. That was my first time. And so I had to admit the wrong of doing that. But it felt good, I must admit. To beat an adult with a belt, I still get a little joy out of it. All right, so let me just hold on to that little one. But anyways, I'm still working on getting through recovery. But my uncle, that was one of my hardest ones, even my grandfather, because I hadn't even planned on going to kill him. I had a plane ticket to go and kill my grandfather, but when I went there, he had been demented, and it was a bad situation, so I couldn't do it. I couldn't even sit on his grave and make amends because I just felt he was still going to come after me. But these were the things I had to go back and do. But in regards to my uncle who died a couple years ago from cancer, I had to make an amends there, even though he was my abuser. And let me tell you why. During those couple years, I would try to find any way to destroy his life, even though he did wrong to me. I tried to come against his family and have them hate him too. Family functions and family events, I would make sure that everyone hated him. I would maneuver and manipulate because he was going to get his. Because now I'm an adult. And so I had to come to the terms that I did something wrong here. And so what I have learned through Al-Anon was to keep my side of the fence clean. It doesn't matter what someone else has done because they have to live with what they've done. But I had to keep my side of the fence clean. And I learned that through Al-Anon. And so I called him up. He thought I was calling the police on him. But what I said to him is, I'm calling to clean up my side of the fence. It wasn't for this program. I would have never been able to do that. For forgiveness is not for them. It's for me. It was for me. And I was free the very last day I did that. I was so free. No more did I have to be afraid when he would walk in a room, and I'm a grown woman. So I asked God to help me and to admit to someone else the exact natures are wrong and to remove some of these character defects from me. And that is to be accountable for my errors and the mistakes that I do. Humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. Well, I had a bad temper. There were some things that I still had to struggle with, but God continued to work with me. Made a list of people I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them. Oh, I would do that. Make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I would do that. That was always with the help of my sponsor. I didn't have the strength yet enough to know how to do it correctly. I don't know if there's any really right way to do it, but through counsel and through someone that's been before me, guided my footsteps. I sought through prayer and meditation to prove my conscious contact with God as I understanding, praying only for the knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out, and that I do every day. My encounter with God is not like everyone else's. It was mine. I met my God in the middle of the air on a fence. I went to a treatment center to be able to deal with my trust issues. I was in Tennessee, and they had telephone poles that you had to climb up with a harness on, and you had to cross this piece of rope, if you will, to the other side of the telephone pole. Golly. It still terrifies me when I think about it, but they wouldn't let me down once I got up there. But they said, we want you to find a God of your understanding, Blossom, because you trust absolutely no one. And the truth was, I didn't. And as I went halfway across, I felt something up there, and I felt safe and protected. That was the first experience of a God of my understanding. It was a supernatural entity that I can't explain. He just is. And so today I pray to him and I meditate so I can hear his heartbeat for me, because I need that love every single day. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I do that today. The key to this, and I wanted to bring my little gift box. You all know I like to give stuff out. First things first is mirror, mirror on the wall. Who am I? Well, first of all, I need to let you know that I'm beautiful, I'm lovely, I'm kind, I'm wonderful, because that's how God made me. But when I look at myself, that's not always what I see until God uses you to remind me who I am. I forget, because so many negativities of words have been pounded. Those seeds of doubt and seeds of fear became cancerous to my person. And the best way I can say, I had cancer of the soul. I had cancer of the mind. I had cancer of the soul. For all the things that was impounded in me to make me believe a lie, until you came and showed me. The keys of the program, I give a key every so often to remind me, what is the key, Blossom? What are you feeling? What's going on with you? I go back to the steps. I need to be real with me. I need to be transparent with me, because I see that working the steps does make a difference. And it has taken me to places I thought I would never be. When people call and look at me and tell me who they see me to be, sometimes it still doesn't match. But yet the doors are opening and they're telling me who I am. It's a miracle. That's why I had to begin with the promises. And last but not least, my bird. I know last year I pulled my little birdie out. The reason I take this little bird out, because he reminds me how I was never really free. Through recovery, you have taught me the freedom to live and to love life, to laugh, and just to be me. And so these are some of the gifts of the program. It has taught me who I am. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who are you? Let me see here. This is Blossom. And I have a key that can change the world. And it's changing the world one place at a time, wherever God sends me. And when I go, I can share with them that I'm really free. I know, ain't that cute? I'll let you guys play with her a little later. But when I dance and really be myself, I bring her this little birdie out. And it just reminds me how free really I am. So my future tells me through this program, it pays to stay. It pays to stay one day at a time. This is another thing that this program has taught me. It's not my dog and it's not my fleas. I'm so used to being in everybody else's business. I use a word that they use in Britain is nosy Parker. You a nosy Parker. Of course, I was a snoop. I love to snoop and what's going on. And that's because I realized I got high on drama. I had to have something going on to make me feel that I was a part of something. First things first. First things for me is my time with God, so I get direction, and then begin to take care of me. And sometimes I still struggle with that. The serenity prayer helps me in the moment of crisis. I love that. And practicing these principles in all my affairs, and I do that. And many don't even realize they're having an Al-Anon meeting. I see mistakes now as an opportunity for change. Just because things are really bad doesn't mean that it's over. That means there's a greater possibility of something new waiting on the horizon for me that I've never encountered. So I say, yeah. Not always, but yeah, come on with it. Because that means something wonderful's about to happen for me. It can only go but up. Keep it simple, stupid, they used to tell me. I'm thinking, who are you talking to? What do you mean keep it simple, stupid? Well, I got it. Just keep it simple. Because I'm so analytical, I have to have everything, just a certain way. But it has helped me. Keep it simple, Blossom. But most of all, let go and let God. He's so yumptious to me. Just delicious. His promises are true. The Al-Anon promises do come true. I am a witness of that. As I walk and I go to different countries and I do seminars and all kinds of different things, and guess what I use? The principles of Al-Anon. And I see lives change and they don't even realize they're getting an Al-Anon meeting. I have found love and truth do work together. When I love myself with who you have taught me to be, and I walk in truth of what you have taught me through the steps, life is so much sweeter. If I come out of denial and walk in the truth and just be transparent. That's why I had to be transparent to you. I don't want to walk around and say everything is just fine. I want to be honest. I need to be transparent because I want to stay alive, because those secrets kept me sick, and the purpose of it was to kill and destroy me. The disease of alcoholism is a death warrant, and I refuse to die now. Before they try to kill me, now I want to live. And so I have to do the footwork to stay alive so I can enjoy the life that has been given unto me. I'm getting a little stronger now, ain't I? Got past the pain a little bit. Woo! The world is not against me as I thought. Everybody don't hate Blossom. In fact, the world sometimes does love me. But in it, I look at the world not as the world against me, but a school of knowledge. It is a school to build my character. It is a school to learn how to love life. So I don't look at the world in this perception that I once came with. Through these steps, I now see the world as an opportunity for growth. I don't always like change, but I know it's better than where I've been. He's an awesome God. I just love my God. And like I said before, what you see here is really the hand of a God that I love. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Last time I was here, I wrote a little thing called Healing Love, and I danced a special song. And this was on 10/25/14, and I still have it. But I'm not going to read that to you today. But what I do want to read to you is something that's been in my heart, and then I'm going to close. The unknown author that I found said, "Love is not measured by the breaths that you take, but by the moments that takes your breath away." I love that, because now I have moments that takes my breath away. I can exhale now instead of holding on. A word I usually, instead of using BLT for bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, is I call it bite down, stop licking your wounds, and continue on to your journey for your treasure. That's what I do. Because as soon as I back down, I start licking my wounds as poor Blossom. So I look at BLT a little different. Again, that's part of, But I love for the moments that take my breath away. When I look in the stars and that's my God. When I see a newborn baby being born, another part of life that I've missed out on because I was so consumed in what the world did against me. And now I don't have to walk that way anymore. It's not measured by the breaths that you take, but the moments that take your breath away. Seeing the mountains coming up here. Those are treasured moments. These are little pebbles in life that keeps me going. The beauty that I never experienced before, now I can enjoy it. And so, ending with this with my mom allowed a lot of things to happen to me. She died about 4 months ago. That's why it was a little hard to talk about this, because she was the core of my issues. I went to treatment because of her. Everything had to deal with Mom. My mama took care of me till I was in my late 20s, took care of my rent, whatever, again to appease me because I was her rape child. But she never dealt with it, and she felt only to go to God, and she didn't want people. But it made her so sick that her sickness hated me. My presence just made her so angry, and she would do everything in her power to literally destroy me. But I used the steps of the program. In her last years, I went to stay with her, and I moved from Ohio and became her caretaker. What did I do that for, I thought? Because it was living hell, living in the same house with someone that had a full-blown disease. But I wanted to honor her because she was still my mother. It was hard, I have to admit. She lied on me. She stole from me. You name it, she did it. But I still stood and honored her. It was my choice. On her deathbed, in her last year, I couldn't stay around her because she was so toxic. She was one of the best, I have to tell you, though. She was the greatest manipulator I've ever met, and I learned well from her. But in her last year, I had to move out and give her, because the more toxic she became, the more sicker I became again. And I found myself being pulled back into that old pattern. But in her last year, I was able to talk with her about my past. But for 7 years, I had no memory of my past, of certain areas of my past. And it became apparent. And I was able to settle those accounts with her. So as she came closer to her death, they had given her 5 years. She had what they called a deep inner brain stroke, and it made her completely paralyzed. So it took her 2 years to come back around, and she was more rambunctious and more meaner than she was before that. But I think that was part of the Alzheimer and, all that other stuff that came with it. And then what was interesting, that's what I thought. Then I took her to her doctor and I said, she's fine, Blossom. She doesn't. I was hurt, and I said, what do you mean? She said she passed the test. What do you mean? She's got, amnesia, or whatever you want to call it. She can't think straight, and, that mental disease or whatever. She said, no, sweetheart, she's fine. And when the doctor came in and told me that in front of her, my mouth just fell open. You mean to tell me you've been playing me for all this time? You've been playing sick and having me carrying you to the car and getting you your groceries and, talk about serenity? My God. Well, anyways, I had moved out and was into her last year. And then she found out she had stomach cancer, and they gave her a month, and then it was 2 weeks to live. And my family, I have to tell you that I was challenged like I have never been challenged before with this program, to actually step aside and sort out my feelings on what was mine and what wasn't mine, and take a look at her from a perspective of this disease. And I was able to separate the two. And I was able to see a wounded woman like I was, but she did the best that she also could. I remember going to a meeting and couldn't wait till she died so my peace could come. And I really felt that. I said, if she would just die, it would make my life so much better. But that was just my anger really talking, because I loved her very, very much. But she had the incapacity to love me. She was a woman that birthed me, but she couldn't mother me. And so as I sat beside her bedside and forgave her for every man she gave me to, forgave her for all the things she had done against me, because I recognized her for the disease. And I said to her, Mom, do you have one last word that you want to tell me? Because you're on your deathbed, And she was quite alert that moment, and she said, nope. And those were the last words that she left me with. She had not one word of love to give me, even on her deathbed. But you know what? I was still okay with me. That was a miracle. And so I held her hand and I read her favorite scripture. And I said, Mom, do you want to know something? I have a gift for you. I am still standing by your side, even on your deathbed, to love you just as you are, because I have been in Al-Anon. I'm able to still love you, Mom, anyhow. And to hold a hand that couldn't love me. That is a miracle of Al-Anon. To a woman that brought me into a world that allowed so much heartache to come into my life. But I was able to forgive her and hold her hand and tell her I love her. And of all my siblings that struggled with the financial aspect of who's going to get what money, blah, 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 I was the only one there holding her hands and was there till she took her last breath. Wow. And so I'm going to close with this, my last closing. My sponsor said to me once, she took my face and she held it in her hand. And these were the most beautiful words that I ever heard. She says, Blossom, you are easy to love. I want to leave that with you too today. That you